Most people who like good beer are very proud that they're from Colorado.
Got agriculture here, it's got the right sunshine, it's got fantastic water.
Colorado has become the Napa Valley of beer. We have more breweries per capita than any state in the country.
It's kind of seen as the world headquarters for craft brewers.
Our whole premise was that people would pay a little bit more for a small item like this. We could make a beer that was fresh and that much better. People would pay an extra 25 cents per glass, and Colorado just went wild for it.
Craft beer has really turned the whole beer industry upside down.
Our economy is in terrible shape, and these are very hard times for people, but the beer industry is one of the industries that's growing.
It's really important for the economy here in Colorado, creates some really nice jobs.
They're driving a tax base.
And it also employs a lot of people.
I think awesome people live in Colorado, and awesome people make awesome beer.
The beer business is good for Colorado, and Colorado's good for the beer business.
Good evening, thanks for joining us. Since it's almost New Year's Eve and everybody's in a pretty festive mood, we thought we'd try something a little different tonight and talk about a subject that's near and dear here, beer. This is sort of an economic story. For whatever reason, in recent years, Colorado's become a sort of mecca for the brewing industry, pumping much more than lager and ale into our state. For the last year or so, we've been gathering interviews, traveling all over Colorado, talking to the experts to get to the bottom of our state's beer explosion, where it's headed and where it all began. And we discovered the history here, when it comes to beer, is every bit as flavorful and rich as a glass of this stuff.
In Denver, by the time the town's 2 years old, there are 35 saloons. There's no museums, there's not much in the way of schools or churches. So these saloons serve all kinds of functions. They're the political halls where people meet to organize politically. They're where the unions get organized. Beer was the drink of choice, at least in Colorado.
This is where my great-grandfather decided to set up the brewery. He immigrated from Germany in the late 1860s and worked his way across country, came to Colorado. We grew this company from a very small base. People forget that, we did just exactly what the craft brewers are doing now. We sold door to door, 6-pack at a time, a case at a time. When I started in the business in 1971, we were in 11 states, pumping all the money back into the brewery. We were growing nicely, and then we decided that if we were going to survive long term, we had to go national.
In 1978, they legalized homebrewing. Suddenly, this hobby that had been practiced in secret became popular. Boulder Beer was started in 1979. We were founded in a goat shed just northeast of Boulder by 2 CU professors. They were filling up their bottles by hand.
When Boulder Brewing Company started, you got to give Coors Brewing Company some credit. They were very supportive of the craft industry from the get-go. They purchased hops from Coors, malt from Coors. They got technical expertise from Coors.
There's a sense amongst the brewers of community service.
We at Boulder Beer will be remembered as pioneers, the first people to do it. We showed that it could be done.
And it just grew from there. The beer column has always been Mr. Beer, which for a while was my license plate. I just thought this is an interesting curiosity. We weren't covering it. It wasn't a big enough deal. And I thought, this might be of interest to younger readers. So I pitched it to the editors at the Post, and they weren't all that thrilled with the idea, but they thought, yeah, go ahead, do it. One of the first guys I ran into was John Hickenlooper.
We told people that when we first opened the place, they said, well, how come everyone's calling it Wine Coop? And we said, well, the man's name was Wine Coop. We don't make wine, we make beer.
Their brewery and bar was about the only active thing going on down there other than guys lying on the street.
Some of my neighbors, when I moved here, they've told me, boy, where the Wind Coop is, man, I wouldn't dare go down there. It was too dangerous.
No one had opened a restaurant downtown in 5 years. We signed the lease back in 1987. There were lots of doubters when we started. My mother wouldn't invest, and it took us almost 2 years to raise the money. And my mother kept saying, who wants to go have dinner in a brewery? I said, no, Mom, it's like a bakery. It's fresh, it's aromatic. That notion that beer is food, that took a while to get people to understand that there was a difference in the quality.
They sat at the bar playing checkers because there were no customers. Even they didn't know where this thing was going to go.
We never dreamed that could happen.
Then Dick Craig, Mr. Beer, comes up in his column in the Denver Post with the idea of Lodo, based on Soho in New York.
I began to get emails from people saying, where can I find this beer? I tasted this beer, you ought to go taste it.
And this brew pub was a major catalyst for the rebirth of what's now, you know, the lower downtown, cool, hip section of town.
I really think it was the wine coop that started the Renaissance down there.
This is a pretty great brew pub.
And of course, when Coors Field came along, then it really took off.
Way back, and there's the storybook ending for the Rockies. The Rockies have won it.
We didn't really not want to get into baseball ownership. We figured the baseball guys can run baseball, we'll do beer. And, but we thought it would be worthwhile to have our name on Coors Field. And I think it's been good for the beer business.
High in the air, deep left field. Take a go. You'll see it again.
Coors Field opened in '95, and then the race was on. What WinCube did was accelerate what would have happened, I think, anyway.
Change everyone's perspective, and now you look at all the seeds that were sown here.
Here we are, and every historic building has been renovated in lower downtown, right? 23 blocks.
Something's going on here with this whole beer thing.
Very, very exciting day here at Avery. We are installing right behind me now. We have a new grain silo going in. That's going to hold probably close to 80,000 pounds of pale two-row malted barley.
We added another warehouse to accommodate that 40-barrel system, then another warehouse to accommodate a bottling line. We've been growing by leaps and bounds. We ship to Sweden, Denmark, and Australia.
Sales for us this year are up close to 40%.
We're at the apex of the largest change we've ever seen inside of a beverage industry in the United States.
Craft beer is growing double digits per year. It's the only segment of the beer industry that's growing. The growth in Colorado is absolutely amazing. We added a new bottling line and a whole new packaging line. We've probably more than doubled our capacity in the last 2 years. We actually have more demand than what we have beer, so we're actually made the decision to come out of about 12 markets at the end of this year.
We're brewing beer as fast as we can right now.
We're creating a ton of jobs, for sure. We're growing, we're adding a lot of staff.
You take sales for spirits and sales for wine and you combine them, you still don't get the sales of beer. And the large brewers are losing a little bit in sales, which is concerning for them. The craft brewers continually are having percentage growth. Even in hard economic times in the last few years, they've shown growth in demand.
The average American lives within 10 miles of a brewery. And here in Colorado, we're lucky to enjoy a high concentration of wonderful local breweries.
And they've made a conscious decision to say, I want beer from my smaller brewers. That's important to me.
By far the most successful of the Colorado breweries, of course, is New Belgium up in Fort Collins. And that's a fascinating place to tour.
It's the story of New Belgium that I think captivates people in the long term. It's like the new American success story. Started in '91, husband and wife team. They decided to start a small brewery in their basement. It was going to be a side project. They both kept their day jobs. Since I've been here, it's grown 14 times in size.
We're making over 500,000 barrels a year now. We have Fat Tire, 1554, Sunshine Wheat, Triple, Abbey, Tupelo, Skinny Dip, Mighty Arrow. Just the success and how much beer we've been selling, I mean, it's mind-blowing.
Well, the majority of breweries in Colorado and every other state are those small brewers. So they are driving jobs, they're driving a tax base, they're incredible community citizens. 50,000 of the 100,000 jobs come from those small brewers.
So at a time when the economy's really, stiff and stagnant, it's a great source of revenue, it's a source of growth, it's a great source of jobs, and we pay a lot of taxes.
Welcome everybody to the GABF. It's the Great American Brew Fest.
Best thing in town?
Yes, sir.
And we're waiting for you so you can have a great night. Come in, drink beer, feel good.
Great American Beer Festival, they estimate, brings $10 million to the city annually.
This is the best celebration of beer and brewing culture in the United States. We have breweries from 48 states, more than 460 breweries.
So this is our Saison White.
Pouring more than 2,200 beers here.
Sales, of course, sir.
It is the biggest beer event in the country.
How about if we do this?
We have 49,000 enthusiastic beer drinkers and beer lovers and fun lovers. celebrating everything about American beer.
Here's the answer.
It's really great opportunities for brewers to connect with their audiences, showcase their beers to new beer lovers.
A happy ending after that flavor in your mouth.
Rooms were harder to get during the Great American Beer Festival than they were for the Democratic National Convention.
It is now last call.
This is it.
If you're a beer lover, this is the place to be.
We all start seeing tourists from around the country and around the world.
All these beer geeks always flock to Colorado.
At this establishment here, we have lots of people coming through on beer tours. And they land in Denver from around the world, and they have a beer tour book in their hand, and they're swinging through.
We put little push pins in wherever people are from. We have people from all over the world coming in now.
We think it's really cool to see where people are coming in from. Yeah, it's just fun to look at.
But I love hearing that we're becoming the Napa Valley of beer here in Colorado. And it's just been amazing to see.
Welcome back. Tonight we're taking a look at Colorado's exploding beer industry. You know, whoever said beer and politics don't mix obviously has never been to our state. Mayors, governors, would-be senators have all made a name for themselves in beer before trying to make a name for themselves in public office.
There's sort of a test in politics, which is, who do you want to go have a beer with?
It's not really a foreign world to us to go out and talk to people about our political beliefs.
The three things are the same in whether you're running a big brew pub or a big city government. You never have enough capital, there's never enough money. You've got a diverse group of people you have to make into a great team, and the public is always ticked off about something.
And who better to go have a beer with than somebody who's in the beer industry, who's made their living brewing beer.
So help me God.
Congratulations. If you look at Colorado politics over the last 5 to 10 years, two of the big names you come across do come out of the beer industry.
I think I'm the first geologist in the history of Colorado to be elected governor. I think I'm the first brewer, and I think I'm the first restaurateur. I have had an unlikely path to elected office.
God bless the state of Colorado and all of you.
Yeah, I learned how to listen to people and figure out what they really cared about.
John Hickenlooper had the good fortune. Pete Coors had the misfortune to run against a very potent Democrat in Ken Salazar.
We're very focused here in Colorado and making sure we keep this seat as a Republican seat and that I'm going to be sitting in it.
We do have a winner this morning. Take a look at these numbers from last night. 50% Ken Salazar garners over his opponent Pete Coors.
I'm not sure that craft brewing is a stepping stone to politics, but it really is a natural for a brewer.
In a celebrity culture, the guy who owns the local brewery is a celebrity.
We found that beer is an amazingly engaging subject to talk about environmental sustainability.
New Belgium Brewing Company may have perfected the recipes for their popular beers, but they are now adding a new ingredient to the process: sunlight.
Top of that building is where we're going to put the solar arrays.
This installation will be the largest private installation in the state.
All of the electricity that we consume here comes from the wind or is offset with wind power credits. Yeah, I get about 5 to 10 contacts a day from other companies, people wanting to know what we're up to and how they can bring that culture into their own business and be more environmentally sustainable. Through Fat Tire, associated this really yummy beer you have with a bicycle, and I think that somehow gets to people as well. The bicycle is just such a beautiful, all-encompassing icon of who we are. It celebrates our environmental ethics, and it also celebrates our history. The most important part, which is having fun. Our philanthropy has done a lot of work to promote bicycle culture.
Whoa! Raise your hands up, everybody! That's a New Belgium Cruiser!
I think it's going to grow, and it's going to be a very successful thing.
Really proud of our friends at B-Cycle who started a bike share program in Denver.
This is the greatest bicycle ride of my entire life.
This is the first day of a two-wheel revolution. This is the first large-scale bike sharing program anywhere in the United States.
You can go to the station, pick up a bike and ride to work.
They're burning calories, they're making friends, doing a lot of things at the same time, and they're having fun.
It's amazing what you can get done when you don't care who gets the credit. Beer can make almost anything a little bit cooler.
The field behind me is second-year growth of Cascade hops.
being local craft brewers, it's nice to get some good local raw materials and support the Colorado economy as well.
Started the farm 3 years ago during the supposed worldwide hop shortage here at San Juan Hop Farms, basically inviting brewers to come pick fresh hops right off the vine and brew with them within 24 hours of picking the hops.
We share beers, share ideas. Yeah, craft brewing is a pretty special industry.
The general viewpoint of Colorado brewers is that rising tide floats all the boats.
It's the brotherhood of brewing in the state of Colorado, and the other states in the United States don't have that.
Welcome back as we continue our look at Colorado's booming beer business. Right now we're standing in one of about 130 breweries in our state. Colorado brewers make about 1 million barrels of beer per year. Our state is overflowing in suds. So why Colorado? Here's a look.
There's only a few states, I think, that can rival us in terms of having a strong beer culture.
It's the largest beer producing state in the union. It's kind of seen as the world headquarters for craft brewers.
We have more breweries per capita than any state in the country.
It's part of our lifeblood. I mean, it's who we are as a people. It's how we're perceived all around the country.
We have a very well-educated population. People who are well-educated naturally tend to ask questions. So they are always looking for something new. Oh, I'm curious, I'll try that.
I think that people live in Colorado for quality of life, and then beer is part of quality of life.
Well, here we can brew beer, we can distribute beer, we can retail beer. Big element is the liquor store system, where there's no chain sales for beer. Every time we go into a liquor store, we're talking to the owner or the beer buyer, as opposed to going to a large corporate headquarters and trying to pitch the entire chain.
Craft brewing is definitely not a fad.
I think there's no going back.
It's kind of revisiting history. The founding fathers were all home brewers. This country was founded in beer. I mean, the Pilgrims only landed at Plymouth Plantation because they were out of beer on their ships. You know, it all started with beer, and it's coming back.
America in 20 years has gone from maybe the most laughed at beer-making country on the planet to the most respected beer-making country in the world.
There's 1,600 breweries in the United States right now. 97% of them are the small and independent craft brewers.
We expect to just be keeping on making good beers.
We're not really in it for the money. We're in it for the beer.
How many other things can you buy? Can you go tour the facility? I mean, there's very few. How many of those can you actually meet the people that make the beer? And that's something that's rich and fulfilling, and I don't see people walking away from that.
Once you discover great beer, it's kind of the equivalent of discovering rock and roll. It changes your life and your whole perspective. Your life is better, and you don't go backward.
Every week, our brewers make a new kind of beer. Sometimes they go with the style that they're trying to match, or sometimes they just say, I wonder if these things would go together well.
Behind us here is kind of a traditional kind of Flemish red in color sour. It's just fun, you know, you just playing. You know, it's, well, the buzz is pretty cool too.
What I see happening is the mainstream brewers trying to get into that market, and they can make it very tough on small brewers.
Blue Moon now is one of our brands that comes from Blue Moon Brewing Company, but that's part of Miller Coors. And we've been able to grow that as actually the #1 largest craft beer in America.
They've got the budgets, you know, they got the distribution systems. They can advertise like crazy.
People say, yeah, they're just a big manufacturing operation. We have the technology here that craft brewers don't have.
Budweiser's a perfect example. They figured out that the growth is in the craft beers. They have a whole line of beers now that have nothing to do with Budweiser.
It's okay to be the little guy in a world of big, you know, industrial beer, but we all have dreams of someday the numbers being flip-flopped. We have a long way to go.
I think people are buying our beer and they're buying craft beer in general because they're learning more about beer, they're learning more about styles, and they're looking for fresh beer. And craft beer is doing all those things. They want to support a local brewery. And I think that people are not looking at Bud Miller Coors as being their backyard business.
There's been no better time in history, I think, to be a beer drinker than now. The craft beer has really turned the whole beer industry upside down.
It's tasty, it's intoxicating in a good way, and it makes you feel damn good about things.
People are really interested in beer. There's a lot of romance associated with brewing and with different kinds of beers, and people love to experiment, they love to discover.
Did you realize there are more yeast cells in this pint of beer than have lived human beings throughout all of history? Which is a kind of an intoxicating thought.
Most people who like good beer are very proud that they're from Colorado.
Got the largest single brewing facility in the world here. We've got their direct competitor 40 miles to the north of them. There's probably more brewing expertise in this state than there is in any other state in the country.
To make great beers in a great environment for the enjoyment of ourselves and our customers. Be ourselves is very important. We make beer that we like to drink.
We've really forced each other to be one of the best beer markets in the country.